In the bustling streets of Brooklyn during the 1950s, a boy named Howard Schultz grew up in the Brooklyn housing projects, far from the polished boardrooms of corporate America. His family was poor, living paycheck to paycheck. His father, Fred Schultz, worked tough, low-paying jobs, delivering diapers, driving trucks, and laboring without security or benefits. One accident left him unemployed and hopeless, with no safety net. For young Howard, this wasn't just hardship, it was a defining moment. He saw firsthand what it meant to struggle, to feel invisible in a system that didn't protect working-class families. That pain would later fuel his obsession: to build a company that not only sold products, but treated employees with dignity and respect. But back then, no one could have imagined that this boy from the projects would one day transform a small Seattle coffee shop into a global empire. It's worth more than $100 billion. Howard wasn't born into privilege. He was the first in his family to go to college, thanks to a football scholarship at Northern Michigan University. But even then, things weren't easy. He wasn't a star athlete, and when his sports career didn't pan out, he worked odd jobs to stay afloat, including bartending and working in a ski lodge. When he graduated in 1975, he didn't step into a glamorous career. Instead, he took a sales job with Xerox, knocking on doors and learning the grind of corporate America. Later, he worked for a Swedish housewares company, Hammarplast, where he sold kitchen appliances like coffee makers. It was there that fate intervened. While reviewing sales data, Schultz noticed a curious trend: a small coffee shop. And Seattle's Starbucks was ordering more drip coffee makers than anyone else. Intrigued, he flew out to meet the owners. At that time, Starbucks wasn't the Starbucks we know today. Founded in 1971 by Jerry Baldwin, Zev Siegel, and Gordon Boker, the original Starbucks was a modest store in Seattle's Pike Place market. They didn't sell lattes or frappuccinos. Instead, they sold roasted coffee beans and brewing equipment. Their mission was simple: to bring high-quality coffee to Seattle. When Howard Schultz walked into that shop in 1981, he was captivated. The aroma of freshly roasted beans, the passion of the founders, the culture around coffee, it felt different. He knew immediately that this wasn't just a store. This was an experience. Schultz begged to join the company, but the founders weren't convinced. They resisted at first. Starbucks was their small passion project, not a corporate empire. Eventually, in 1982, they gave him a role as director of marketing. In 1983, Schultz traveled to Italy for a housewares show. But what he found on the streets of Milan changed his life. Everywhere he looked, there were espresso bars. They weren't just places to grab coffee, they were community hubs. People gathered there daily, connecting, laughing, building relationships over cappuccinos and espressos. Coffee wasn't just a drink, it was culture. Schultz had an epiphany. Why couldn't America have this too? Why couldn't Starbucks be the Italian coffeehouse experience right in the middle of Seattle? He came back bursting with ideas, pitching the concept of transforming Starbucks into a cafe-style business. But the founders weren't interested. To them, Starbucks was about beans and equipment, not lattes and foam. So Schultz made a bold decision. If they wouldn't do it, he would. In 1985, Schultz left Starbucks to start his own venture, Il Giornale, an Italian-style coffeehouse. He wasn't wealthy, so raising money was a struggle. Banks turned him down, investors laughed. But he persisted, pitching his dream hundreds of times until finally raising $1.6 million from a group of backers. Il Giornale opened in 1986, serving coffee in the authentic Italian style, complete with standing bars and classical music. And it worked. Customers loved it. They thrived, proving Schultz's vision was right. Then came the twist of fate. In 1987, the original Starbucks owners decided to sell the company. Schultz, still running Il Giornale, seized the opportunity. He convinced his investors to back him again and acquired Starbucks for $3.8 million. He merged the two companies, and suddenly, Schultz had the Starbucks brand and a blank canvas to paint his vision on. But buying Starbucks didn't mean instant success. Schultz still had to prove he could scale his Italian-inspired coffeehouse model across America. Expansion was brutal. Opening new stores cost money they didn't always have. By 1992, Starbucks had grown to 165 stores, but many investors doubted whether people would pay premium prices for coffee. Think about it. Back then, most Americans drank cheap diner coffee for 50 cents. Schultz was charging $2 or more. It seemed insane. Skeptics called it a fad. Competitors mocked him. And yet Schultz pressed on. He believed people didn't just want coffee, they wanted experience. A third place, as he called it. Not home, not work, but a comfortable in-between where community and connection could thrive. In 1992, Starbucks went public on the NASDAQ at $17 per share. The IPO raised $25 million, giving the company the capital it desperately needed to grow. At that time, Starbucks had around 140 stores. By the 2000s, Starbucks was unstoppable. With stores opening everywhere from Tokyo to London to small-town America, the brand became synonymous with coffee culture. At its peak, Starbucks was opening 7 stores a day, but rapid expansion created cracks. By 2007, Starbucks had over 15,000 stores worldwide. Quality slipped, stores felt cluttered. The unique coffeehouse culture was replaced by a cookie-cutter formula. Worse, the 2008 financial crisis hit, and consumers cut back on $4 lattes. For the first time, Starbucks faced real danger. Its stock plummeted nearly 50%. Hundreds of stores closed. Analysts predicted decline. That's when Schultz, who had stepped down as CEO in 2000, returned to rescue his company in 2008. Schultz moved quickly. He shut down thousands of stores for hours of retraining, reminding baristas that this wasn't about speed, it was about craft. He cut unnecessary products, closed underperforming locations, and doubled down on innovation, introducing loyalty cards, mobile payments, and new product lines like Via Instant Coffee. He also focused heavily on digital transformation long before it was trendy. Starbucks became one of the first retailers to integrate payments with smartphones, pioneering the loyalty app model that would later inspire companies worldwide. By 2010, the comeback was in full swing. Starbucks rebounded stronger than ever, proving that Schultz's vision still had power. Today, Starbucks is valued at over $100 billion, with more than 35,000 stores in 80 countries. It sells not just coffee, but an experience, a lifestyle, a global culture. But behind the green siren logo is a story that began in the Brooklyn projects, with a boy who watched his father struggle and vowed to build something better. Howard Schultz didn't just create a coffee company. He created a movement, one built on community, respect for employees, and the radical idea that people would pay more for quality and connection. It wasn't easy. He faced rejection, financial risk, near collapse during the recession, and endless skeptics. But he turned every obstacle into fuel. And in doing so, he transformed a handful of Seattle coffee shops into one of the most iconic brands in the world. So the next time you walk into a Starbucks, sip your latte, and scroll through your phone. Remember this, behind that cup is a story of grit, resilience, and vision. A poor kid from Brooklyn didn't just sell coffee, he redefined it. And in doing so, he built an empire worth billions.